So Gemar Tov, everybody. And good Shabbos too, right? So there was this Jew who was a Yekka, extremely particular about all of his preferences in life, and he had a flight with Swiss Air. And so he phones up 6 months before the flight to make sure that he gets seat 38C, because he must sit in an aisle seat, and they guarantee him 38C. A month later, he phones again to confirm it, and they confirm it. And so each month, he phones again, and they confirm, yes, sir, you have seat 38C. A month before the flight, he calls, yes, C, aisle. A week before, a day before. Finally, he comes to the airport 6 hours before the flight. No assigned seating. He gets his boarding pass, he gets onto the plane, and to his horror, he sees that he got 38A. He's sitting by a window. He was not given his aisle seat. Outraged is not the word. He lands, his wife calls him, she says, Jack, how was the flight? He says, you call that a flight? 6 months I called them that I want an aisle seat. 5 months, 4 months, they lied. I'm going to sue them. I will close this airline down. His wife says, my dear husband, darling, it's really so important to you to have an aisle seat. Why didn't you just ask the person next to you to switch seats with you? He says, ask? I should ask. Nobody was there. We're here tonight, my friends, with a purpose, with a mission, with work to do, all of us, because throughout the year, we, like him, get stuck in our anger, in our impatience, in our petty comments, in our passive-aggressive comments, in our resentments, in our jealousy. We get stuck in the stuff that we know is no good for our souls, for our relationships with those we love, the stuff that doesn't serve us, the stuff that chains us down to our lower version of ourselves. If you can't think of any that you need to work on, I've got some good news for you. This book and our prayers tonight and tomorrow it's filled with suggestions. Ashamnu, bagadnu, gazalnu, dibarnu, dofi. We insult, we mock, we neglect, we are unkind. All of us, we are stuck in all of it. And Kol Nidre, tonight, it's our night for getting unstuck, or at least thinking about it. It's our night for putting life into broader perspective. It's our night for seeing the bigger picture of the course of the life that we're leading and the direction that we're heading. It's our night for asking ourselves the biggest questions about the time we're given on this earth. Are we making the best use of it? Are we growing as individuals? Are we working on ourselves, or are we getting stuck again and again and again in those patterns of behavior, in those habits that just do not serve us? If we've grown complacent through the course of the year, if we've said to ourselves, this is just who I'll always be, tonight, tomorrow, you know, we strike our chests and we do it to get our hearts started beating again, alive again from that complacency. And we think, really, about what we have to work on. We think about those traits, about those qualities, and we mention them out loud tonight, and we do it in the plural because you know all of us We're not at it alone. Thank God. What I love most about our Torah, when you really get into what's unique about the stories of our patriarchs and matriarchs, of our biblical figures compared to other faith traditions, what you find is how unbelievably flawed and imperfect all of them really were. We need that reminder to know that we're not doing this alone. We need to know that Moses, our leader, gets so frustrated with the people that he takes his staff, that very same staff that caused miracles to come forth, and he uses it to smack a rock out of anger and frustration with the people. He loses control when he should have been a leader. So much so that God points to that moment and says, Moses, maybe you're not the guy to take these people into the land after all. And his brother, Aharon, who's the exact opposite. He's the guy, instead of jumping in and being passionate and taking a stand, he's the guy who just does nothing. Any conflict avoiders in the room? That's Aaron, which is a problem on the other extreme. The one who lets the people build the golden calf. He says, what could I do about it? I don't want to get involved in what's right. You should know, even God in the Bible, you know the first verb that's used to describe God in the Bible and God's relationship with humanity, it's regret. That should tell you something. That after the story of the flood, God looks at God's self and says, maybe I got a little carried away that time. And there's a tradition that on Kol Nidre, it's not just an annulment of our vows, of the vows for us. It harkened back to that moment where God was angry and God made a vow to do something out of anger toward humanity and then said, no, that's not the God that I want to be, and turns to the side of compassion. Very interesting that in our tradition, Kol Nidre applies not just to us, but to God. But the point is, Hashem knew, but God knew, Gazal knew, we were in good company. To be a Jew is not to be perfect. There is no such thing. There's not even a Hebrew word for perfection. Don't forget that to be a Jew is not to be perfect, and that's not what this time is about. It's to recognize as fully and as honestly as we can the imperfections and to work through them and to strive to rise again and again as many times as it takes in life. We repeat the confession, the vidui, over the course of Yom Kippur no less than 10 times. And some people say to me, that's too many. Gets repetitive. Well, I say to you, maybe it's not enough, because old habits die hard. Ki sheva yipol tzadik v'kam, it says in our Bible, that the righteous fall down 7 times and rise on the 8th, because we might still lose our patience. We might still get angry at a spouse unnecessarily or overreact with that anger. We might still cheat or lie or take the easy road instead of taking the high road in life. And we might do it on the 3rd or the 4th or the 5th or even the 7th time. But the point is, Ki sheva yipol tzadik, that a righteous person falls down 7 times v'kam, to rise on the 8th. To care about this work of character development and spiritual growth enough that eventually, maybe, we start to get it right more and more. Why? Because why else are you living? Because the alternative is to say, I don't care, and those are the most anti-Jewish words that you can possibly speak. Point of Kol Nidre, point of Yom Kippur, is to look in the mirror honestly. And if you're starting to get already hungry, or already thirsty, or already tired, wake up to the power of what this day is all about and look unflinchingly at who you are and put your life in real perspective, because you don't know that you need to get up if you don't even know you've fallen. And so many of us live life like that. Our sages relate to us that Yom Kippur, this holiest day, is linked to the festival of Purim, which is its exact opposite. A day for fasting on the one hand, and a day of partying and drinking on the other. They're opposites. What's the connection? How is Yom Kippur connected to Yom Kippurim? They say the opposites, not just because one day is for fasting and another day for drinking. It's because one holiday is about wearing costumes and putting masks on, and this day is about taking them off. So take the masks off. There's an urgency to it. Rosh Hashanah, it is written, we say. And Yom Kippur, it is sealed. There's an urgency to this moment. You know what that really means, I hope. It means you do the work of striving to be the best version of yourself that you can be right now, however you need to, and only you know what's going to work for you. You put that effort in now because Yom Kippur says to you, you don't know, none of us knows how much time we really have. And if you don't care about who you are, about the legacy that you're leaving behind on this earth right now, who knows, really, if I'll have another chance? Who knows if I'll have another year? Maybe you know the brilliant author who I love to quote, David Brooks. David Brooks has an amazing piece that I always revisit around this time of year. He's got a piece that he calls the moral bucket list. And what does he say in the moral bucket list? It's the most Yom Kippur idea that you could ever imagine. He says to us, there are two types of virtues in life. There are resume virtues and there are eulogy virtues. When someone asks us, who are you? Almost always, we talk about what Brooks would call the resume virtues. Where I've lived, what types of jobs I've held, this is where I went to school, this is the number in my bank account. Those are the resume virtues. And he says not enough people really think, when you ask them who you are and they reflect on who I am, about eulogy virtues. That is to say, the list of qualities that people will use to describe you when they are given the sacred task of sitting down to write your eulogy. Whether you were kind, whether you were brave, whether you were honest, whether you are faithful. We don't think about it on Yom Kippur to be morbid. We think about it because we need the inspiration to create the kind of life that's worthy of speaking about in a beautiful eulogy. We all know that those eulogy virtues are far more important. I think it's sad that our culture, that our educational system spends so much more time telling us you are who you are on your resume and not you are who you are on your soul. So as Jews, we stop and we do something very radical, and we call it Kol Nidre, and we call it Yom Kippur. If you come tonight to grow as a person, you have come to the right place. It all starts with the words that we just offered, Kol Nidre, which is not a prayer at all, but a legal declaration, a legal formulation. How is it? What is it about the words of Kol Nidre, if you really think about them, that have moved generations of Jews and inspired generations of Jews from so many different walks of life to lift up the story of who they are in this world? I'll tell you, everybody thinks that this prayer Kol Nidre, this formulation, is like a get out of jail free card. Is that how you think about Kol Nidre? What we do, what we say, all my vows are going to be annulled, so that means I can do whatever I want throughout the course of the year. I can fully accept all of my negative traits, all of my flaws, knowing that come next year I'll stand before God again and I'll say, I tried a little, I wasn't that successful. Thankfully, Kol Nidre wipes it all clean, and so no big deal. We're in it for another year of the same old me. No. Too many people think of Kol Nidre in that way, and it's exactly wrong. It's exactly the opposite. Kol Nidre says to us in our holiest moment of the year, your words are powerful. Your words mean something. And all year you're busy telling yourself lies about how limited you are as a person, how inadequate you are, about how you'll never change, about how you'll always be this way to your spouse, to your brother, to your sister, to a stranger. You're always telling yourself, this is just who I am. And Kol Nidre says, if you've put yourself with your words in that confined box, if you've promised yourself that this is the way it's supposed to be and this is who I'm going to be forever, if you're tying yourself down, Kol Nidre says, it's those vows, it's those words that you offer to yourself that need to be annulled. All the time you spend telling yourself throughout the year of who you can't be, Kol Nidre says, annul those words. That's why the second word in Kol Nidre is asure. Do you know what asur means? It's a prison, beit asurim. We live, too many of us, in that prison. And so we say today, and through this season, Hayom Harat Olam. Today is the day, and this season is the season that the world is born. Today is the day, and this season is the season that I try to remember what can be born of me in my words, in my actions, in my relationships, that is more beautiful than I ever thought possible. You may not like me giving this sermon. Nobody likes a sermon about change. Nobody wants to hear a rabbi stand up and say, look honestly into the mirror of your life. Nobody wants to hear about growth. People look at a rabbi who gives this sermon on this topic and they say to themselves, you're younger than my grandkids, Rabbi. Don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me what I need to work on. But all of us do. At every age, and at every stage of life, ki sheva yipol, we fall and we fall again, v'kam. But to be a Jew is to rise. It's said about the late Israeli Prime Minister Shimon Peres, in a story I'll leave you with tonight, that his son Chami turned to him when he was an old man, and he said, Abba, you're getting old. What is it that we should write on your tombstone? Shimon Peres was 93 at the time, and he knew that he was coming to the end of his life. So he said at 93, write these words, here is buried a man who died prematurely. You understand what it means to be a Jew? You understand how Moses turned to God at the burning bush and said, I cannot lead this people, I cannot speak, and went on to speak the holiest and most beautiful words ever spoken in human history. You understand how Jacob, whose name Yaakov means crooked, who was the one who was cheating and getting one over on everybody, wrestled with that and became Yisrael, and struggled and prevailed, and how that became our name and how that became our story. Take this day seriously. It begins tonight. It is the work of a lifetime. But here we are with a year with so much opportunity, beginning anew with the full power and the full force and the full spiritual weight and the weight of history into this night. Let's not waste a moment. Sheva Yipod Sadik Vakam. We come from a people, a righteous people, who fall and who rise. Tonight we recommit to that work in all the ways that we know personally we must. And so now as we begin our prayers, first we'll turn to Shabbat prayers for just a moment. And then after those prayers lift our spirits, we will rise for our call to prayer and our call to sacred action. Gamar Tov.